Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Pre-Heresy and Codices, where I go over one Space Marine Legion per ramble, giving you my thoughts on what codex or codices would best represent that legion in a 40k army list build, and then talking a little bit about collecting that force. This time it's the Death Guard Legion, and the Death Guard Legion does have a color change from pre to post heresy, but I call it unintentional, just because the idea of the Death Guard has always been function over form. Where the Emperor's Children had to look all really cool and blinged out. Same thing with the Blood Angels. The Death Guard are more like, does it work? Is the power armor functioning as intended? Then who cares what it looks like? So while the color schemes come this off-white with this green, like shoulder pad trim or shoulder pad inset, you look at it and it'll be heavily corroded, chipped, damaged perhaps, superficially, but nevertheless functional and working just fine, and the Legion likes it that way. So you cut the post heresy where they basically have that same mindset but fully embracing the touch of Nurgle. They're all corrupted, warp tainted. They're all rotted a bit, plague marines. They're all corpseified and gross. They're all corrupted and corroded and mutated and whatnot. So it kind of just, the color that they are post heresy is just a byproduct of that. So that's why there's a color change pre post heresy. I just wanted to kind of describe it that way because I think it's one of the more unique things of a color change, because other legions it was kind of deliberate, and with this one it's more of a whatever. Now, before they became the Death Guard, they were known as the Dusk Raiders, in the Unification era and whatnot. And during the Unification era, the Dusk Raiders had this really dark kind of shadowy gray color, and then their right arm and right shoulder pad inset was red, as you can see. It's a pretty cool look, and they had a different symbol, of course, but that would be the look to go for if you were trying to collect a Unification era force of the Death Guard. So with that being said, let's go and look at what codex or codices would best work for them. In my opinion, there's two that can work for you: the generic Space Marine Codex, which works for basically every legion, and the Chaos Space Marine Codex. And while the only reason I'm listing the generic Space Marine Codex is not because it's a good fallback, but because it can legitimately work here. Anyways, starting off with the Chaos Codex, you got to look at it. Are you representing a loyalist Death Guard force, or are we going to represent fully embracing the heresy, Siege of Terra era Death Guard force? Because when they're loyal, you still have the same universal restrictions, but you have two options to go with here. So the universal restrictions for the Chaos Codex is no demon engines, no defilers, no flyers, no mutilators or obliterators, no possessed, no chaos spawn, no sorcerers, because Mortarion did not take kindly to psychic abilities. So you have those type of restrictions going on. But if you want to do a loyalist force, you can either go with no Cult Legion at all, so no Plague Marines at all specifically. The other three wouldn't work here anyway. And just Chaos Space Marine squads and Chosen squads, and of course your Terminator squads. And you go that route. Or you can go the route for your power armor being purely Plague Marine. You can run a pure Plague Marine only force in terms of power armor dudes, because that really does represent the way the Death Guard are pretty hardy and stout Marines. They have good survivability. So if you want to represent that, you could do that as well while being loyal. You just don't have to paint them up all plaguey. You paint them up normally. And if you want to go Chaos, well then you can do that, of course, and then you can have icons and Nurgle and stuff everywhere, to represent them fully embracing Nurgle during the Siege of Terra. So that is your option as well. And then you can actually use some even Plague Marine models to kind of fill it out. But anyways, that is the Chaos Codex. Now with the generic Space Marine Codex, the reason I like it is because you have the choice of the chapter tactics. You can pick whatever one really works for you. And you can still represent the infantry heavy dependent tactics of the Death Guard, because while they had vehicles to support it, they really relied on infantry pushes and almost kind of like an attritional style of that. So you still have restrictions here, but there's much less, so you have more wiggle room to work with. You have no chaos. No, obviously no chaos. It's the generic Space Marine Codex, but no Land Raider, Crusader, or Redeemers. No Centurion squads, no flyers, and I'd stay away from doing any counts as Legion of the Damned. While they are survivable, it's kind of a different limelight of how the Death Guard are. If you really wanted to, however, you could, and I would recommend really converting up your force to look super super battle wary, with chipped armor and superficial damage and stuff like that, just to kind of make them stand apart from the rest. But, and no librarians, again, because Mortarion's Legion, Mortarion did not like Psychers. So, with that in mind, you have the rest to go with as you will. Pick a chapter tactic. I'm not going to say one's necessarily the best for them over the others. It depends on your style, because the Imperial Fist one could be just as effective as the Ultramarine ones, or whatever. So, with that in mind, that's the generic Space Marine Codex. Either codex will work for you. If I were to ever collect a Pre-Heresy Death Guard force using a 40k army list build for them, I would probably actually go with the Chaos Codex and just go pure Plague Marine, powered armored infantry stuff, just because I like that feel for them. Which is the opposite. Normally I go with the generic Space Marine Codex, but I would go that way for this Legion. So with that being said, let's talk about collecting a Pre-Heresy force, because again, remember, we're talking about a Pre-Heresy 30k era force. So no Mark 7 power armor, only Tartaros or Cataphracti Terminator armor, and all those restrictions, no Imperial Eagles on the chest plate, stuff like that. So GW really isn't much of use here for this Legion. We have the potential to utilize their Plastic Venerable Dreadnought to be a Mark IV Dreadnought, and we have some bits that could work, like Mark VI stuff from the Tactical Squad box and some of the Chaos Space Marine bits, but really, there's nothing that's going to be super cost effective to just buy outside of that Dreadnought kit. So you're really going to be looking heavily at Forge World for stuff, especially if you're going from scratch. Really, at that point, I recommend going with Forge World bits and stuff. So all of the generic Legion of Astarte stuff is going to work for you. They're meant to work with any Legion. It'll work here. But being that the Death Guard were in the first book, they have their full range of model bits and whatnot out for them, which is really cool. So the Death Guard have a full range, which of course includes a head upgrade set and a torso upgrade set. The heads, I would say, are a bit of a acquired taste, even for Death Guard fans, I would imagine. While it looks cool, I could see if some people were shying away from it, or I could see why they would, I should say. So I understand that, but they also offer the torso upgrade set and the head upgrade set together, along with one of their powered armored shoulder pads, to do a Death Guard squad upgrade set, which is pretty cool. So that's nice. You can do that, of course, to help Death Guardify your force that you're collecting. They also have Cataphracti shoulder pads, which I thought was really cool, because the Death Guard really do like their Cataphracti Terminators. They like their Terminators in general, and they gave you some Cataphracti shoulder pads, which I thought was pretty sweet. Well, they don't give you have to buy it, but you have the option to, which is cool. They made a Death Guard Legion Contemptor Dreadnought, which again is very cool. You can use it as a regular Dreadnought, because I know Forge World has rules for Contemptors in 40k, but I'm talking about building a list purely with just GW stuff, and there are no Contemptors. So you could go ahead and run it as a generic Dreadnought, because why not? It looks cool. Why not do it? So you can definitely do that if you wanted to pick up that piece. If you were using the Chaos Codex, or even if you're using the generic Space Marine Codex and you want a really cool looking HQ model, you can go with Callus Typhon. He is the first captain of the Death Guard. He's got a character series model. He's basically the guy who, in the Chaos Space Marine Codex, that the Death Guard special, the Nurgle special character, that's Typhon. Later becomes Typhus. But you could use that model for either codex for any HQ. It just looks pretty cool. So with that being said, they also have Legion, Land Raider, and Rhino doors, which is always nice. But the Death Guard have two kits for squads. Both are Terminator squads. One's relatively easy to make work in a 40k armless build. The other one's a little bit harder. So starting with the one that's a little bit harder, that is the Death Guard Death Shroud Terminators. A cool unit, cool fluff, basically the bodyguards of the Primarch. And they're equipped with basically an alchem projector on their wrist and a scythe. So we can't do anything for the alchem projector, but we can make sure the scythe is represented properly. And the way you do that with the generic Space Marine Codex or the Chaos Space Marine Codex is to basically field assault-style Terminators with the assault squad from the generic Space Marine Codex, or just upgrading your Chaos Terminators to be assaulty. And you do it in both cases with twin lightning claws. You know, a scythe, pretty good at cutting down infantry, right? So you make them count as having twin lightning claws, and it gets the point across. It makes them have that ability and usable. I mean, so you always have the people who aren't a fan of doing that, but because they look unique enough, because the scythe definitely portrays cutting down infantry, saying, hey, these guys count as being equipped with twin lightning claws, I personally wouldn't have a problem with. I think it can work just fine. So you're able to build the squad as is, and if you ever wanted to actually build a Forge World army list for Warhammer 30k, as they call it, utilizing the Horus Heresy series rules, you have the Death Shroud squad ready to go, if you end up wanting to do that. So that's one option you could go with for sure. The other squad is the Grave Warden Terminators from the Death Guard, and these guys look pretty cool as well. You got one guy with a Chain Fist, the rest have Power Fists, as you can see. Well, whenever the picture probably is up by now. I don't know when the picture is going to be up. It all depends on how this works out. But you get my point. I'm going to try and put it while I'm talking about them. Anyways, they got Power Fists. One guy's got a Chain Fist. Somebody's got basically what looks like a Heavy Flamer. It's more of an Alchem heavy projector thing. I get it. But in purposes of the 40k army list build, it would be a Heavy Flamer. You have one guy that's got a Storm Bolter, aka Combi Bolter for the Chaos Space Marine Codex. I get it. And you got the other 2 or 3 guys, I should say, look like they got some type of grenade launcher, right? Well, you can represent that as just more Storm Bolters or Combi Bolters, depending upon the Codex. So it basically be a shooting Terminator squad with a Heavy Flamer in it. Works just fine. Very easy to represent that force, have everything work well in that, to represent it. And equip everybody in the Chaos Codex with either a Chain Fist or Power Fist, and of course you can equip your Sergeant, I believe, in the generic Space Marine Codex with a Chain Fist. So definitely works out, no problem. However, the 2 last things I really want to talk about are really, I feel, the not hidden gems, but the best things to look at when it comes to upgrading your force to, well, not upgrading, but making your force look more Death Guardy. You have the Death Guard Legion brass etching, which can work on vehicles. It can even work on some infantry models, and it's brass etch. Only it's or etched brass, I should say, but it's done in the theme, obviously, of the Death Guard Legion. Looks very cool. The one I like even more is the Death Guard Legion transfer sheet. This thing is about as big, a little bit bigger than an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. That's a lot of transfers on this sheet. Unfortunately, there's no Dusk Raider transfers. The World Leaders transfer had some Warhound stuff on it. This is just Death Guard, so that's unfortunate. However, you got so much stuff here that one sheet will definitely work for basically your entire collection for an army list. So it'll really add an extra level of feel of Death Guardiness to your force for your infantry, if you don't want to get the sculpted shoulder pads, to your vehicles for sure, with or without the Land Raider or Rhino Door upgrades. It'll just really make your force feel more Death Guard-like when you have their symbols and stuff on your models. So anyways, that's it for this little ramble here on the Death Guard Legion. They got a full model line, so you can definitely get your force looking and feeling Death Guardy, both in army list build and in the look of the models. So that's really cool. So that's it. Thanks for sticking through it. The next Legion is going to be the Thousand Suns Legion, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, take it easy.